this before. I'm gonna hit that. We got it. All right. So restorative yoga, just as a refresher, is meant to be a relaxing practice. This is meant to calm our nervous system and prepare our bodies for sleep. And you've all heard of fight or flight. This puts us into rest and digest. So this is great for if you are dealing with any issues like anxiety, insomnia, stress, severe muscle tension. This is going to help with all of that. And tonight I wanted to make it really accessible to anybody that didn't have fancy yoga props in their home. So we're just going to be using a basic mat. You can lay down a towel or a blanket on the floor. I'm also going to be using, instead of a yoga bolster, because those can be quite pricey, we're going to be using a series of pillows and blankets. I also have some rolled up beach towels. So these are all things that hopefully you have in your home. There is one pose we're going to do towards the end of class. It's called legs up the wall. If you have access to wall space, you can feel free to use that wall space to do this posture. If you do not have free wall space, propping your legs up on a couch or a chair is another option. And if you don't have access to that because of the space you're in, I will also be showing how to prop up your legs with the blankets as well. So with that, we are going to go ahead and get started in our first posture. The way I'm going to work this is I'm going to show you basic setup, and then I will get into the pose. And then I will sit up and I will continue to just talk and instruct you into the movement. We're going to be holding these postures for a total of about 6 minutes each tonight. So let's get started. Okay. And Cheryl, hopefully you can hear me and see me, okay? If I go out, let me know, okay? All right. So for this first posture, this is called reclined butterfly pose. And for this one, I'm just going to prop myself up with a couple different pillows towards the head of my mat. And I even have my little Halloween blanket here that I'm going to use to further prop myself up. And I'm going to use a couple of beach towels as well. So when I have my little incline pillow and blanket tower built, I'm going to go ahead and just recline my upper back against my little tower. And then to help support my knees, I'm going to use my beach towels. You could use blankets or pillows here as well. And I'm going to prop those underneath my knees. My feet are together and my knees fall apart. Your hands could rest by your side or onto your abdomen. And once you get settled into the pose, you could close your eyes and just breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. And you'll notice that I'm going to be getting up and down out of the posture. That doesn't mean that I want you to necessarily come in and out of the posture. I'm just coming back for anybody that maybe got lost along the way to help them get themselves reset up. So again, I could use several pillows, blankets, towels to create a little incline for myself. And I'm propping myself up by having my upper and middle back on props. I take some blankets or towels underneath my knees and thighs. I let my head completely relax. And we're just focusing in on breath here. Breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Try to make your breath a little bit fuller and deeper. depending on the space that you're in, you may be feeling your body surrender down into the pose. You might be hearing a lot of quiet. Maybe you're just taking in some sounds of your atmosphere around you. We're practicing being present and yet undisturbed. As we continue to let gravity just take hold of our bodies, we're feeling some of the muscles around our face, the muscles around the eyes, the muscles around the cheeks, the muscles around the jaw, just relax. Let's practice staying aware, but relaxed and not make our movements too fast. It's like you to just gently wiggle your toes. Gently wiggle your fingertips. And we want to transition out of this pose very slowly. What I like to do is roll towards my right side, or maybe you feel better rolling towards your left. And we'll use our arms to help lift us back up to a seated, propped position. And we're going to remove some of these props that are around us to transition into the next pose. So you'll see me deconstruct my inclined tower here, and I'm going to rebuild another kind of a tower. So for this, again, you could use pillows stacked. You could use multiple blankets or towels. I personally am going to use about 3 to 4 folded up blankets to do this next series. This is called fish pose. And what I want to do is have several lengthened out blankets. I have 1 blanket down, 2 blankets down, 3 blankets down, and I'm even going to use my Yoda blanket here. Got a little Yoda on it. I'm going to use this next one too. Now, in our reclined supported fish pose, if you have any knee issues happening, you might want to use another little prop, a pillow or a towel to put under your knees as well. I'll be showing that option. So once I've built my tower, my flat tower out of blankets, I'm going to keep my butt down on the ground, and I want to place my mid back right on that little tower. I'm going to move this flameless candle. And I want to place my secondary towel or cushion for my knees underneath my knees, so that way that just takes away any strain. I'll allow my head to also rest down on my elevated blanket tower. And I'm going to come out to the sides with my elbows, sort of like I'm making a W shape. Now, depending on how sore or tight your chest is, you may have to, I'm going to show you this from a seated position. Some people can come in real tight like a football goalpost and let their forearms touch the ground. Other people have to come out into a wider W to let the backs of their arms and their forearms touch the floor. So any of these variations or in between are okay to do with your arms. We're opening up the chest and the lungs and the throat. This is a great posture to do around this time of year when we're dealing with seasonal allergies, or maybe you're starting to get a little cold. It's great for opening up the lungs. So I'm going to come back into the pose. Once again, I have that little tower of blankets. I have a little support for my knees. My glutes, my butt is still on the floor, and my back and head is elevated. My arms are coming out in whatever position feels good personally on the body. Let's talk about, once you get into the pose, what you might initially be feeling. Most people tell me that they feel a big stretch across where their armpit and the front of their shoulder come together. This is a really tight area of tissue. And so this may be the deepest stretch that you've gotten here in a while. That's okay. We want to stay with that sensation of stretch. And if you need to lower your blanket tower, that's one way you could make this less intense. In the world of yoga, we call poses like this heart openers. And you can think the center of your chest here is just being stretched right open. You can relax all those muscles around the neck, shoulders, and even the front of your rib cage. Just giving a gentle stretch. Feel your eyes starting to close. Maybe your fingertips curl just a little bit. Maybe you just let your feet drop open. You feel heavy into the ground. check in with your breathing. You may notice that your breathing has become either more shallow or deeper. And we're not judging our breath. We're not telling it that it's good or bad. We're just simply making a mental note of how our breath reacts when we try to open the body. We'll mentally check in with the shoulders, the area around where the armpit and the shoulder come together. Ask yourself, has this area softened at all from when you first came into the pose? We're going to try 3 more deep, expansive breaths. As we inhale, we're going to feel our stomach rise upward. And as we exhale, feel the stomach fall back down towards the earth. 2 more big breaths. And as we prepare mentally to leave the pose, let's wiggle our fingertips, roll the ankles, and start to move the palms back down to touch the ground. Palms are face down on the floor. We'll bend our knees one by one, placing our feet onto the mat. And once again, you'll roll onto whatever your preferred side is. And use your arms to help press you up to an easy seated position. And I'm just going to give it a few moments to ensure that we are all coming out of this pose slowly and safely. If you've never practiced fish pose before, it is normal to feel a little bit of a blood rush from the head. Some people do feel a little odd coming out of the pose. And that's just a matter of we were in somewhat of a back bend. So all of our fluid was moving in the opposite direction of where it normally does. So I do recommend sitting upright for just a few moments so you don't feel dizzy after that pose. I'm going to go ahead and visually transition to the next pose, but if you're still grounding yourself and having your blood flow return to normal, take some time. This next posture, I personally think it's fun. However, my restorative students at the Park District that I teach at think it's a little less than fun because it's a big stretch for our hamstrings, the back of your thigh. If you have tight hamstrings or tight low backs, this posture may be a little bit intense for you. So how I like to set up for this one is I like to have a little bit of a lift through my bottom. So I'm going to take one of my beach towels and I'm going to sit on one of my beach towels. I'll extend my legs. Now what this does is this lifts the pelvis up a little bit to help us get deeper into the back of those legs. I'm sure you've all seen the forward fold stretch where you reach forward and touch your toes. That's quite intense, and we're not trying to go that hard tonight. So what we're going to do is bring a series of blankets, or potentially all the blankets, and maybe a pillow, and stack it on top of our thighs. Now, because I don't want to smash my nose or feel suffocated at all, I'm going to turn my head and place one cheek on my pillow. And you could reach your hands towards the front of all your preps and just give yourself a little hug. At about the halfway point, I'll have us turn our head in the opposite direction so we don't experience a sore neck. And if you're very tight from the hamstrings, building your tower up higher. If you're a little more flexible, coming down lower is okay, as long as that doesn't strain anything. Okay, so I'm starting time. If my timer will let me, there it goes. And we're just going to take one cheek down for now and reach our arms towards the front of our blanket tower. Please excuse me as I lift up my head to speak so you can hear me better. Your cheek should be staying down, resting on your tower. What you might be feeling here is a big stretch through the back of your upper thigh. You may be feeling the back of your hips. You might also be feeling the front of your hips. You may be feeling your low or mid back. And at this point, after you've had about a minute pose, I would just like to offer an option for anybody who's feeling very uncomfortable and would like to subtly change positions. If you do need to subtly change positions, taking another blanket or towel underneath your knees and just propping them up can make a big difference, especially if you're experiencing pain in the back of the legs. This helps lift up your little blanket tower too, so you don't have to lean over as far. Your feet can be flexed or pointed, whatever's feeling more comfortable to you. We're just really sinking into our breath here. We're about the halfway point. So at this point, I'm going to have you turn your head to bring your opposite cheek down onto your blankets. And you may feel a different sensation in your neck start to happen. Just breathe into this as fast as you can. I often tell my students in studio to unclench their jaw. We tend to hold a lot of stress and emotion in our jaw. So just actively letting that go, maybe opening and closing your mouth a few times and resettling it into a slightly open or relaxed position. Take note of how your breath subtly moves your whole body. As I was laying here with my cheek against the blanket, I noticed that my whole props would just move subtly with every in breath and every out breath. Think of how your body is moved and very affected every moment of the day just by your breath. It's a very powerful tool. We're going to start to wiggle our fingertips and our toes and lift our head to a straight position. Lifting our torso and our upper body away from our little tower. And we're going to take our props off of our legs to free our thighs and remove any other objects that you happen to have cushioned under your knee or under your bottom. Just take a moment to sit after that deep forward fold. In yoga, in the yoga world, we typically think of forward folding postures like the one we just did as being great relief for anxiety. So if anyone is struggling with that right now, that could be a really great pose for you. The next posture we're going to do is another forward fold, and it's called child's pose. I'm going to show everybody so you have a frame of reference if you're not on the live Zoom call. If you've never done this practice before, I want you to see what a child's pose looks like without the props, just so you have a visual of where your hips are supposed to be going. And then I'm going to show you how to build this into a restorative pose with our props. So traditionally, I guess this is still traditional. Restorative is still a traditional practice, but maybe you've seen on TV or on a magazine this posture. You're from all fours and you push your hips all the way back towards your heels and you reach your arms ahead, placing forehead down. That's typically what we would call a child's pose. And we're trying to lengthen the back of our body by letting your tailbone rest down towards your heels. But today is restorative yoga, and we're trying to make things a little bit more relaxing. Also, not everybody's knees enjoy child's pose, so I'm going to try to show you a couple ways that you can make child's pose a little more knee friendly for if there's any pain going on. The number one step for knee pain is I would take 2 blankets or your towels, and I would make a little happy pad. I call it a happy pad for your knees. And that way I have an extra cushion for my knees. The second step I would do is, so I don't put too much pressure when I go back with my hips, I would put another little towel or blanket behind each of my knees. And my third step would be to build a little pillow blanket tower for myself to hug over. And this is another posture where I don't want you to smash your nose or your face. So we're just going to let one cheek come down to our tower. And about halfway, I'll ask you to change. So I have started our time. If you're still getting yourself set up, just a checklist. I have a pad under my knees. I have a pad behind my knees. And I have a tower built out of my blankets and props right in front of my chest. I'm letting my chest and my cheek come down to my tower. And your arms could rest really anywhere. Some people also like to let their arms come behind them. So you can play with that. And I'd like you to stay relaxed just while I sit up and talk for a moment. We're feeling this stretch in a few different places. I'll start from the lowest point that you might be feeling, which is the front of your ankles. Some people are going to get a big stretch in the front of their ankles and the front of their shin. Other people will feel more of a stretch in the front of their thighs. That's called your quadricep muscle. And most of us will feel some sort of a stretch through our mid to low back. Now, if you're not feeling any of these things, it's okay. This posture is still doing a lot of good things for our nervous system. It's helping to bring on that rest and digest we talked about at the beginning of the class. Without too much movement, we're going to lift our head and turn our head in the opposite direction so we don't get a stiff neck.
When we come out of our child's pose, some people have to do this very slowly so they don't have any sensations of dizziness. What I would like you to do is bring your palms of your hands down flat to the ground and start to lift your upper body away from your tower and move any items out of your way that are in front of you. Then I would just take any items that are behind the knees away. And you may choose to keep this little knee pad down for yourself as a way to set up for the next posture. I'm going to change positions entirely for this next posture. We're going to be opening up our hips. And I'm going to kneel up just to highlight which area of our hips we're going to be stretching. This is called the iliopsoas muscle group. And these are what's called typically the hip flexors. And whenever we take a step forward, we're in a sitting position, these muscles contract. And this is where we tend to hold a lot of stress, anger, sadness, a lot of emotions in this little hip crease right here, where the crease of my leg is. So we're going to be stretching this muscle group one side at a time. If you've ever seen the standing balance tree pose in a yoga magazine, that's what we're going to recreate, but we're going to be doing this laying down on our belly. So I'm going to show you what this looks like. I'm going to stand up and show a tree. You don't have to do this. This is just so you can see from this front angle what my hip is going to look like from the side. Then I'm going to come back down for you and show you how to practice. Okay, so tree pose, you just need to see the bottom half of me, so it's okay if my leg goes, if my face goes out of frame. This is traditional tree pose. So you're opening out your knee and getting a stretch through the front hip crease. But because today is a restorative class, we're not balancing. We're trying to keep our body relaxed. I am going to use a towel or a pillow to help me prop up one knee. I'm going to use a pillow. So what I'm going to do here is just take one pillow down to the ground. And I'm going to lay flat down, belly down to the earth. Now this pillow's over here, yes? So that's the knee that's going to come up on the pillow. And my legs, my feet and my leg don't have to connect here. We're not balancing. It's just more about opening up the front of the hip. So I have one knee elevated and the other leg is straight behind me. And because I don't want to smash my face down, you could go either cheek to the mat, or you could put your two hands under your forehead and just let your head rest face down here. So we're going to be holding this for about 3 minutes on each side. So I'm getting my timer up here. And we're laying face down. One knee is elevated and pointing out to the side. The other leg is not elevated and is straight behind me. And my head either comes to the side or straight down. Let's gently lift our head up off the ground and slide this elevated knee away from our pillow. We're going to practice the same posture to the other side of the body. So I'm simply just going to move my pillow to the other side. And the leg that was straight last time is now going to have the knee propped up on the pillow and the knee bent out to the side. And I'll come back down into my most comfortable position for my neck. Let's start to lift our head. Slide your leg away from your blanket or your pillow. And let yourself come back to a seated position. My favorite two postures in restorative are next. This next one is called legs up the wall. This posture has a lot of benefits for anxiety and stress relief. It's also really good for getting a lot of blood flow to our brain. So if you deal with headaches, this could be beneficial for you. We're going to use at least a couple of blankets if you're going against the wall. If you have wall space that is free that you can move to at this time, that's great. If you don't have access to free wall space, what you can do is prop your legs up on a couch or a chair. And I'm also going to show how to prop your legs up on bolsters and, sorry, not bolsters. We have blankets today. So let me first show how to do this if you don't have any wall space, if you don't have a chair or a couch that's accessible. Obviously, I don't want you moving couches, right? This is about being relaxed. But if you didn't have any of those things that you had access to, what you're trying to do is elevate your legs above your heart. So I would use all of my props, all of my blankets, all of my pillows, and I would try to build as tall of a tower as I possibly could. And then I would scooch my hips as close as I could to my tower, and then let my legs rest on top. Now, if you are a person that does have access to a wall, I'm going to show this next. I'm going to use one little towel under my butt and one towel under my head. And I'm going to be facing away from the camera because that's where my wall is. So hopefully you can still hear me as I get into this. What I want to do is have one of my towels right where the floor and the wall meet. And then the other towel is back behind me. That's going to be for my head. I'm going to scoot my butt as close as I can to the wall and up on the towel. And then I'm going to do a little, what I call a ninja roll here. I'm going to swing my legs up that wall and readjust the towel underneath my hips and pelvis and place that other towel back behind my head so I'm supported. Once you are in one of these two positions, we are just going to relax and let gravity take over. Some people like to stay straight up with their legs. Some people like to widen out a bit. It does not matter. You choose whatever feels best for you. This is a great posture for draining our lymphatic system, which is good for our immune system health. This is also great for if you walk a lot or if you're just very sore or swollen through the legs. It does help to help flush out some of that swelling. To come out of the pose, we're going to re-bend our knees if we are against a wall, and we're going to slowly walk ourselves down to a sideline position, and then prop ourselves back up to a seated position. Now that was another yoga inversion, which means all the blood just went to our head, similar to fish pose. So this is another one. After coming out of it, you may just want to sit for a moment because you might feel a little bit odd, otherworldly, or lightheaded. Our final posture is called Savasana, and I refer to this as our final relaxation. This is the little yoga nap at the very end. So I have a couple ways I like to teach this in a restorative class. I first of all like to get a little pillow for my head. And I like to put another little pillow underneath my knees to just help prop me up and help me feel real supported. From here, if you would like a support for your arms, you can have your beach towels to your side just for your backs of your hands to rest upon. And you have several blankets. You can put as many blankets over the top of you as feels good. Create a little warmth. I'm glad these candles are flameless while I have all these blankets by. All right. So Savasana, we're just laying in a relaxed and comfortable position. And this is just about being mindful and giving our bodies a little bit of a break after whatever kind of a day you've had. Never feel guilty for resting, even if your day hasn't been particularly active. Your nervous system may have been very busy still, even if you weren't physically busy. So we're just giving ourselves permission to rest and breathe. And I will let you know when it's time to come out. Staying as peaceful as you can. Let's take one more big, deep breath. In through the nose. Out through the nose. Let's wiggle the fingers. Roll through the ankle joints and the wrist joints. And trying to not get ourselves tangled up in any blankets or props, we're going to give our knees a little bit of a bend. And then roll onto whatever side feels more comfortable for you. Use your hands to press yourself up into an easy seated position. And take a moment to just recenter yourself as you sit, grounding down to the earth. We're going to be ending today's practice with our yoga salutation. This is a word in Sanskrit, which is an ancient Indian language. Yoga still keeps this language alive. And this is a word you may or may not have heard before. The word is namaste. It's used very similar to how in Hawaii, aloha can be used as hello or goodbye. Namaste is very similar in that regard. But what the word means is there is mutual respect between the teacher and the students and the world around us. It basically translates to the light, or everything that is good in me sees and respects the light and everything that is good in you. So I say to you all this evening or morning, if you're practicing at a different time, namaste. Thank you so much to you all for joining me tonight. And we are just going to continue to talk about other things yoga related that you all may be interested in. You guys can let the people, Nami, Will-Grundy, specifically Cheryl, know if you have any yoga requests out there. But I want to say thank you to my rest of my peoples on Zoom tonight. You guys did great. How do you feel?
Good.
Thumbs up. Good.
Good. It was good.
Thank you so much. Well, I will look forward to seeing you all again. And you guys have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, Tracee.
Thank you.
Thanks, Cheryl, for putting this
Good
on.
night. Thank you.
Thanks, Cheryl. All right, everybody. Good
Take
night.
care. Thank you.
Great. Bye.